My name's Darren. Jump in the passenger seat with me as we explore the remote areas and wildlife of Africa.
Take control of your own life.
At the end of the last episode, it was March 2020, and I'd decided to try and avoid corona lockdowns by jumping on a previously booked flight to Namibia in southern Africa, where my broken Land Rover was waiting. When the going gets tough, the tough run away to Africa. And in this case, I was taking some extra camera gear to teach myself to film and create an online channel.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard.
Checking in was fine, if a little surreal, with a lot of self-questioning of what I was doing and how was it going to work out, combined with an atmosphere of impending badness or madness about to arrive somehow from somewhere. It was a night flight down to Luanda, the capital of Angola, then a short domestic hop inside of Angola, and finally on to Windhoek, the capital of Namibia. 3 long flights to endure. I've had a beach holiday in Somalia and drunk tea with the Taliban, but I am petrified of flying and find sleeping impossible. So apart from a pretty good dinner, it was a long night of staring at the floor and trying not to worry about catching corona or the plane dropping out of the sky. Breakfast finally arrived as the sun came up over the horizon, and we were soon descending into the cloud above Luanda, the capital of Angola. Having a high temperature here meant weeks in a government isolation facility, which wasn't very appealing. The world had certainly changed. A short transit stop with lots of masks, surgical gowns and temperature checking, which was all a bit unnerving. The rest of the morning was a bit of a blur given I hadn't slept and the anxiety around corona, but somehow I was on a plane coming into land at Windhoek Airport. Fingers crossed. Getting off the plane and walking over towards the airport building, I could see ambulances parked by the door we were required to walk into. Just as I was about to enter, 4 people were frog-marched outside and placed into a waiting ambulance seemingly bound for 14 days of quarantine. Was that going to be my fate as well? Inside there were some intimidating temperature checking machines, but no problem. I had no fever and felt okay, so sailed through the airport process and out into Namibia. Step 1 complete. I'd arrived. Albeit it'd take a few days to know if I'd arrived safely or not. Namibia already had corona cases before I arrived, but I'd been conscious of not adding to the situation, so I had minimised all social contact for 12 days before leaving, been extremely stringent about hygiene in the planes and airports, and organised an isolated place to stay for a few weeks on arrival, where I'd only be in contact with 2 people. Straight from the airport, it was off to pick up my beloved Landy, who'd been waiting faithfully for me in storage. G'day, old friend. However, both batteries were completely flat, which was very suspicious, as I have a rock-solid split-charge electrical system in her, and everything was fine when I left. I jump-started her from a battery pack and drove off. However, 1 kilometre down the road, she ran out of diesel. Something wasn't right here. She had 20 litres in her when I left her. So there I was, 3 overnight flights with no sleep, stuck on the side of the road in the late afternoon sun with uncharged batteries, no diesel, no water, no food, and feeling pretty exhausted and angry. And I forgot to film anything useful to show you. What else did the overlanding gods have in store for me if this was day 1? Luckily my years of travel around Africa had taught me you had days, or even weeks like this sometimes. No great surprise, just need to calmly get through it. Tomorrow would be another day. And eventually a kind friend rescued me from spending the first night on the side of the road. Thanks, mate. A good sleep solves many problems, and the next day life seemed a lot better. But with it came the news that there were no more flights. They'd been suspended until further notice. I'd arrived on the last flight into Namibia, and there wasn't going to be an easy way out via air for a long time. As these first few episodes are about getting to know each other a bit, and providing the context for the adventures we're about to have, It's probably worth noting that I'm not a super mechanical kind of guy. Growing up in rural New Zealand, I took an average interest in any kind of moving machine. They were fun and interesting, and it was great when I got my first clapped out banger from my Uncle Den. But I had no idea about mechanics. The first time my granddad gave me some oil to top up the engine, I tried to pour it down the dipstick hole because obviously that's where the oil is. I didn't have much interest in pulling them apart or fixing them up like many Kiwi blokes who couldn't wait to get their driver's licence on the day they turned 15 and then attempt to kill themselves as quickly and as drunkenly as possible. I was happier inside reading a book, which I was often mocked for, and it's one of the delicious ironies of life for me that I'm the one now driving a 4x4 around Africa while they sell insurance or whatever they're doing in their domestic bliss. Upon leaving New Zealand and backpacking around Mongolia, I figured out that vehicle-based travel was the only way forward for the remote areas and longer travel periods that I enjoyed after hiring this Russian Jeep that opened up the country for me. Later, when I got to the UK, I bought the Landy and the fun and adventures started from there, 21 years and 400,000 kilometres ago. There is no adventure, beautiful places or wildlife without a reliable vehicle in Africa. You need to eat your vegetables before you can have dessert, so to speak. Despite being a poor mechanic, my nature is to be well researched and prepared, so I do know quite a lot about my 1991 200 TDI Defender, and with my life often depending on her being able to drive, I look after her meticulously, or at least as well as the conditions allow. Luckily in this instance, I had the use of an empty workshop. Local mechanics were going to pitch in as time allowed for the really hard bits, and most importantly of all, I had Buckley to help me get started. But first I thought I'd better ask him if he minded being filmed. You want to be on my YouTube channel, Buckley?
Yeah, why not?
Alright. Say hello to New Zealand and Portugal.
Hello.
At this stage I was kind of scared of the cameras I had in my bag. Too many settings and fancy features to try and figure out when I needed to concentrate on fixing the Landy. But instinctively I grabbed an action camera on automatic settings and with it some shots during the days I was there. There was a lot to do, but hanging over us was this very strong feeling that a full corona lockdown was going to be put in place at any moment. So time to get very busy, else I could be locked down in the workshop for months. What do you think, Buckley? Should we fix it or put a new one on?
No, just get a new one. Just try to take it off so that can the spray and then get it a bit shiny. Get it
C'est Fontaine shiny.
just for them shiny, yeah. Let's do a normal color with Land Rover parts.
If the cases are going down, we're lucky in that sense that we may consider proposing relaxations of some of the measures. But if the cases are getting worse, then we must prepare for the worst and act in such manner. So I would like to end here.
Well, there you have it. That was the live feed from State House, where we were listening to the press conference from the State President and the Minister of Health, who has just confirmed the lockdown of the Khomas region and the Ironga region for a period of 21 days, starting at midnight on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. And then also a total travel ban from outside of Namibia.
So, as expected, a lockdown had been announced starting the next day at midnight in the two provinces that had the three biggest cities in Namibia. I was in one of the provinces, so needed to finish up the mechanics at night, do some quick shopping in the morning and get up north as fast as I could to avoid being locked down in the workshop. It was a bit of a mad rush to get things back together. We had to take some shortcuts in the work, slap things together with silicone, but at least I was driving again. A quick stock up at the supermarket, a mad rush around town to try and find a second spare tyre of the size that I needed, and I was on the fancy new road out of the capital, heading for the remotest place I could find. If we were all going to perish in a global pandemic, at least I was going to go out in some style in the deserts of Namibia. Some hours later, I was out of the lockdown provinces and two strange things happened. The first was on a noisy roadside truck stop, where for some reason I thought I'd launch forth and record myself for the first time. A bit of camera practice that I'd never used. Okay, well, I've made it out of Windhoek. Pretty hectic morning, to be honest. Just gathering everything I need. It could be quite a few months before I can go back. And Namibia is a place. It's changing. Sorry about the traffic. There's a mad race to get in or out of Windhoek today. Anyway, so yeah, stopped for a bit of lunch. Some disgusting thing from a petrol station. Had an interesting experience when someone tried to flag me down and say that, you know, there's something wrong with the car and that I should stop. There's like four youngish guys in a hatchback, so clearly I wasn't going to stop. Particularly I had all my camera gear in one bag on the front seat. But that's Windhoek, unfortunately. It is a little bit dangerous, a little bit of a Johannesburg. It seems very nice, like some sort of small, sleepy Arizona town. But no, it's a little bit edgy. Anyway, I'm very tired. I can't really concentrate, can't really do this very well, but I thought I should record something just to, you know, show that overlanding is not a lot of fun sometimes. It's quite stressful. Got to practice speaking to the camera, stop saying Anyway, I gotta go. Here comes a truck into the truck stop. And then as I was going to drive off, the second strange thing happened. My low battery alert came on. It turns out whoever had been messing with the Landy when it was in storage had also burnt out the alternator. So while I'd charged the batteries up in the workshop off the mains electricity, I'd been driving around town all morning, stopping and starting when I was shopping, and the batteries hadn't been charged by the alternator because it was broken. So while the engine had started now, I couldn't turn it off again because both batteries were completely flat and it wouldn't start again. Luckily, the Landy Bush telegram kicked in and put me in touch with Diesel Electric an hour up the road. The nice team there confirmed the problem and helped me swap out the alternator for the old spare that I keep in the back, even though it was almost closing time. Thanks, guys. Not fully trusting my old spare alternator, I ordered a new one from the UK as my model isn't stocked locally, but that meant waiting somewhere for the delivery. So I holed up in the rain at the campsite of a fancy lodge to see how long delivery was going to take, given that the country had closed its airport and was going into lockdown that night. Welcome to the less glamorous side of overlanding. I woke up this morning, huge thunder and lightning storm, slashing rain till about 11 o'clock. Had a few hours of overcast, but at least no rain. It's now 2 o'clock and it's just started to rain and the thunder's in the distance, and when I check the satellite map there's a big angry yellow and green blob over where my GPS point was. So I guess this is it for today. Nothing very good at all, just sitting around drinking tea. Everything's wet and sodding and whatever sodding is, and I don't want to get underneath the Land Rover and get all dirty and muddy and so forth. Brilliantly, although I'm in a very nice, by accident, luxury kind of campsite, the showers and toilets are open air, and so there's no roof on them or ceiling of any kind, so going to the toilet or having a shower is also quite a challenge in the pouring rain. You know, you see a lot of sunset pictures and animals and gorgeous shots and so forth, but the reality is that might be 1 or 2 days a week. A lot of the time, you know, overlanding's hard and annoying, frustrating. Here comes the rain and the wind. You can hear it picking up. Hoping my awning's not going to go away, and most importantly I'm hoping I don't get struck by lightning. Seriously, I'm hoping that. Alright, well, let's see if we survive. Here comes the rain. Despite the constant rain and mosquitoes, it wasn't all bad, as it gave me a bit of a breather and a chance to try out some of my cameras and figure out where I was going to mount them on the landy. Okay, so I could also position it, say, here. And then it's got me inside, and let's see what happens when I flip around. Quite a lot of tyre in the shot there. Whereas if I put it here, it's much less tyre. There we go. Alright, let's see if it ever comes off. Alright, should be good. Okay, so that's the camera mounted. It points slightly down, which is not a bad thing. It's up against the license plate, so it should be fairly steady. After a long and fairly tedious 4 days, it seemed delivery of the new alternator was uncertain. Best estimates were about 6 weeks instead of the usual 3 days, so I decided to head up north without it. Fingers crossed my old one would hold out. Altogether 5 days of needless stress and about £500 wasted by the landy vandal. On the drive up north I consoled myself with thoughts of a spitting cobra climbing into the bed of whoever was responsible. It's very, very green in Namibia this year, massive rainfall. In fact, Land Rover's covered in mud just getting out of the campsite today, or sliding all over the place. So I've just entered Kununi province, so that's good. So my goal today is to get as far up the Skeleton Coast as possible. The 2 central provinces of Namibia are in coronavirus lockdown, and the president or somebody like that said the rest of the country is coming soon. So I'm just trying to get to the Skeleton Coast, basically, where it's just desert, it's dry, hot, and very few people. So if I've got corona, there's very little chance I'll give it to anyone, maybe the odd hyena. And we've managed to break free of the cloud cover, which is great. Back into the ferociously hot burning sun, but camping's a lot easier in sunshine than in this rain. It's good to be back on the gravel tracks, really. Everything slows down. There we go, Sesfontaine, 136. 1,540 metres. Alright, so downwards. I'd love to now show you some great shots of the drive up to the very northwest of the country, down off the rainy plateau and into the desert. But as you can see on the very corrugated roads, I learnt some harsh lessons about the limitations of stabilisation and the need for sunglasses on action cameras. The road's pretty bad, just sort of corrugated and bumpy. Fingers crossed! No problem, wasn't too deep. I've always liked the saying that in order to run a marathon, you have to take the first step, and that's what this footage is. It's completely unusable garbage, it's overexposed and everything's shaking to heck. But that's what I was here to do, to learn, to experiment and move forward from there. So I won't show you any more than this, but you can enjoy my failure.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright.
In the rush to get out of the lockdown zones, the decision of where to head was based on instinct. Get away from people and into wide open spaces. The Kanuni region, next to the Skeleton Coast, seemed to offer the best solution, albeit in the middle of summer it would be extremely hot. Over 40 degrees every day was to be the norm from now on. On the drive up I realised that the tiny village of Puros was my best bet. It's on the very edge of civilization with a 2G Edge mobile signal, friendly people and a couple of community-led campsites. However, this was balanced by the fact that the nearest hospital was 8 hours drive away on gravel roads. Before arriving, I thought I'd get in some more practice at filming myself. Something that I knew I was terrible at the moment, but that I'd have to master if I was going to be able to present interesting stories. And here at least the backdrops had become stunning. So just stopped a few kilometres outside of Puros. Just have a quick break, catch my breath and figure out my plan when I get there. It's a beautiful place up here, I love it. So yeah, so far so good. Got a few small mechanical things I believe, a tick 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 which is the mudguard for the brake disc. I think that's what's causing the noise, I hope so, it's a very simple fix. It's a new differential I just put in, well that's a much bigger problem. Anyway, let's see what sort of reception I get. I'm guessing the campsite people won't be there. There's no other tourism, no other tourists I think going on that I'm aware of. It's not lockdown up here, but I'm assuming most people have run away home for fear of being stuck here for months on end. So I'll go and find the campsite and just sort of park up and assume someone will come after a few hours or a few days. Hopefully they're not sort of hostile, thinking, oh, foreigners have brought the disease to Namibia, so it's all my fault. Puros itself is really just well, being honest, it's just a ramshackle sort of village of small huts. It's got a couple of vague shops, I guess you'd say. They do their best, but it's 100 kilometres on a very bad road to where there's a shop that's not brilliant. So it's the absolute bare necessities of life available here. As I drove into Puros, I realised that after a very long stressful month of decisions, planning, organising, changing continents while Corona changed the world, mechanics and lockdown panic, I'd basically succeeded. I was free in a huge, beautiful area, the Land Rover was fixed well enough to putt around slowly, and provided I didn't get sick in the coming days, my plan had worked. I was some kind of global pandemic genius. A huge weight slowly began to lift from my shoulders as the scenery became ever more amazing. Puros offered the chance to park up and get my bearings, unpack all of my video gear and watch some of the tutorials on how to use it, to try and capture the beauty of the place and the sense of being there, rather than the limited and frankly embarrassing footage I'd captured to date. It would also be our first chance to see some wildlife, including desert elephants and some uninvited campsite guests. And as it turned out, something even more deadly turned up.